Finding Nemo made an incredible splash when it arrived in theaters in 2003, setting box office records and collecting countless accolades. Naturally, Pixar's hidden a bunch of secrets and Easter eggs in its depths. Let's dive in. It all began with a pitch, and apparently director Andrew Stanton's was intense. He spent an hour presenting his fishtail to the head of Pixar, John Lasseter. He poured his heart out with elaborate visual aids and even took on character voices in his telling of the story. After the performance of a lifetime, he asked Lasseter what he thought, and Lasseter told him, "You had me at fish." Well, it seemed his hard work paid off anyway. His voice can be heard in the movie as every seagull who yells, "Mine?" Moreover, he's also the voice of the unmistakable righteous sea turtle Crush. Like Monsters, Inc. story supervisor Bob Peterson before him, Stanton nailed the temp track, and his surfer drawl proved popular in test screenings. Also, rumor has it that his laid-back delivery was recorded while he was laid back on the couch in his office. Don't let that story fool you. Stanton really had his work cut out for him, and there were some tense situations brought about in the casting department. Did you know that the voice of Nemo's dad, Marlin, had to be recast? The original voice was performed by revered actor William H. Macy. After Disney's board of directors watched an early cut with his voice, then Disney CEO Michael Eisner shared some insulting insights, which led to Stanton replacing Macy with another esteemed performer, Albert Brooks. In the book Disney War by James B. Stewart, Eisner was quoted as saying of the Pixar team in their movie, "Of course they think it's great, trust me, it's not." Well, Eisner wound up eating his own words as Finding Nemo garnered the best reviews Pixar ever had and became the highest-grossing animated film of all time. Needless to say, the shareholders lost their faith in Eisner. This misstep was another in a list that led him to leaving his position as CEO in 2005. Enough with the business suits, let's slip into something a little more fun, like a scuba suit. Well, fun for humans, not for the fish in the scene. This is the moment that Nemo is taken from his dad by the scuba diving dentist, voiced by Aussie acting legend Bill Hunter. As he bags Nemo and heads back to the boat, his fellow scuba friend takes a picture with their underwater camera. Did you happen to notice the model number on that Seameister? A-113. A113, the Cal Arts Classroom Easter egg. Nemo's dad Marlin is no stranger to tragedy. The reason for his neurotic nature is because he lost his wife Coral, as well as their nest of fish eggs to a hungry barracuda. All that remained was the one tiny scarred egg holding the lucky-finned Nemo. We see this event play out in the opening minutes of the movie, but did you know that Andrew Stanton originally planned to reveal the sad past with gradual flashbacks throughout the film? After a few test screenings, it made more sense to let the whole scene play out up front, because otherwise Marlin came off as too much of a worrywart. With that scene at the beginning, audiences had more sympathy for Marlin and a better understanding of why he's the world's least funny clownfish. Of course, if there's anyone up to the task of making an unfunny clownfish funny, it's actor, comedian, and filmmaker Albert Brooks. In fact, that concept was what appealed to him the most about the character. Marlin is continuously challenged by other sea life to tell funny jokes, a challenge he normally bombs, but not Brooks. According to details in the DVD extras for Finding Nemo, Albert spent a lot of time in the voice booth butchering jokes, and in doing so, he had the sound technicians in stitches. Stanton said, "We have about an hour of audio from Albert telling a series of jokes really badly. They didn't make any sense, but that was the part that was funny." Albert Brooks isn't alone in bringing the funny. Along for the ride is actor, comedian, and talk show host Ellen DeGeneres. Ellen plays Dory, a regal blue tang with an unfortunate memory problem. Did you know that Dory wasn't originally conceived as a female role? In fact, no less than the likes of Johnny Depp, Robin Williams, and Jim Carrey were being considered for the role. But Stanton wrote the script while listening to his wife watch the Ellen DeGeneres show in the background. Hearing her voice and the stream of consciousness pattern convinced him that she was the right person for the role. Not everyone was on board. DeGeneres could bring the funny, sure, but Dory also had some heavier scenes, and the filmmakers weren't convinced Ellen was up to the challenge. Her most dramatic scene comes when she begs Marlin not to leave. The recording team decided to have Ellen record that scene at the end of the day, at which point they would ask her to take the recording home so she could work on her performance. Ellen agreed, but her performance in that first test proved so good that apart from some customary pickups, it remained in the final film. Well, that's one crisis averted. Of course, Marlin and Dory face many other challenges in their search for Nemo, starting with one of the most fearsome creatures of the deep, a great white shark. Luckily, this shark named Bruce is working a support system to break the stigma and prove that sharks and smaller fish can be friends. Did you know that Bruce is named after the shark in Steven Spielberg's trailblazing blockbuster Jaws? Not the monster, of course. If that were the shark's name in the movie, it probably would have brought in significantly less ticket sales. No, Bruce was the name Spielberg gave the mechanical model of the shark. He named it after his lawyer, Bruce Raymer. Hopefully he was just poking fun, as the shark model was infamous for not working well at all. There's actually a deeper cut regarding Bruce. Have a listen to his Aussie dialect. That's no accident either. This is a little wink to Monty Python's Flying Circus in one of their most memorable sketches known as the Bruce Sketch, where everyone in the philosophy department of the University of Woolloomooloo is named Bruce. Absurd? Yes, but no more absurd than a shark support group. Still, it seems Bruce is also working through some childhood trauma of his own. Once he realizes Marlin is searching for his lost son, he bursts into tears, crying, "I never knew my father." Turns out this is pretty likely for most sharks. In reality, male sharks leave after mating with their female counterparts. This is one oceanic fun fact that gives credence to the movie, but there are other truths of the ocean that need to be bent a little for the sake of the story. One big one has to do with Marlin himself. You see, clownfish are known as protandrous hermaphrodites. This means that a male clownfish has the ability to change its gender to female in order to help maintain the species. With that in mind, in the real world, after the loss of coral, Marlin would have become Nemo's mother. That sure would have made for a different movie, perhaps a different voice too. The filmmakers also took some artistic license in another department, and that's the design of the characters' faces. Did you know that the animators went with a land-dwelling animal as a reference for the fish's expressions? I mean, what could be more endearing to human audiences than man's best friend, the canine? That's right, they incorporated dogs' facial expressions into their fish models. This type of creativity didn't always sit well with some of the more technical-minded specialists brought in to advise the creative team. According to one animator, a certain consultant would push back on the biological inaccuracies of the fish designs. In defense of their creative flourish, the animator argued, "Well, in real life, they don't talk either." Haha, touché. As you can tell, balancing the world of the animated film with real-world details was quite the tightrope walk for the animators. It was still important for the underwater world to feel authentic, which is why the production crew wound up spending time in the water themselves. Did you know that the key members of the team had to become scuba certified and study the Great Barrier Reef firsthand? There were also visits to aquariums and in-house lectures from fish specialists known as ichthyologists. The animators even developed a software that made the surface of the water so lifelike they actually had to make the water look more fake for the final product. Another system was invented for the jellyfish sequence, a shading process called transblurrency, which created that cool frosted but see-through effect. Still, there's one particular software familiar to you movie logic viewers that was also utilized to animate the waving strands of the anemones. Remember what it's called? We talked about it in our Monsters Inc. video regarding Sully's millions of strands of fur. Come on, can't quite put your finger on it? You could in its Easter egg form because it showed up on the keypad for the door track. There it is, Fizz-Tea. Talk about a useful resource. Speaking of, Marlin and Dory catch a break when they happen upon a school of knowledgeable, not to mention playful, moonfish. The fish help guide Marlin and Dory in the direction of Sydney, Australia, after a short game of charades. You see, when Nemo was taken topside, the dentist accidentally dropped his scuba mask into the ocean, and on it he had written his address, which Dory could read, surprisingly, P. Sherman, 42 Wallaby Way, Sydney. And the duo have been trying to find that location ever since. Oh, did you happen to recognize the voice of the moonfish? That's right, Pixar regular John Ratzenberger is finally making himself heard in this movie. Anyway, during the game, the moonfish take the form of an old ship and sing a couple of bars of a song as one witty fish walks the plank. Fans of old Disney movies will recognize the tune as Whale of a Tale, sung by acting great Kirk Douglas in the 1954 Disney movie 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. What's more, the sub's captain, played by the legendary James Mason, was named Nemo. Nemo, of course! All this time while Marlin is trying to find him, Nemo has been dumped into an aquarium. Well, not so much an aquarium as a fish tank in a dentist's office. He soon learns he's not alone and that he's the latest addition to the motley crew of the sea life collected by the dentist. There's Bubbles, a yellow tang who's, well, crazy about bubbles. I'd say literally. He's voiced by character actor Stephen Root of Office Space, Dodgeball, and HBO's Barry. Next up is Peach, an ochre starfish, voiced by West Wing and I, Tonya's Allison Janney. She's the lookout of the group. Bloat, performed by Brad Garrett of Everybody Loves Raymond and Ratatouille fame, is the porcupine fish with a little bit of an anger issue. Vicki Lewis plays Deb and her, sister, Flo? Deb and Flo, like the tides ebb and flow. Get it? Anyway, she's a damselfish. We've also got Jacques, performed by Joe Ranft, who actually has a number of Disney writing credits under his belt, like The Lion King, Toy Story, and Cars, to name just a few. Oh, and he's the cleaner shrimp. Last but not least, we have Gil, a Moorish idol, voiced by the intense Willem Dafoe. An interesting thing about the Moorish idols, they don't take to captivity well, which is perfect for Gil's character, as he's always trying to find a means of escape, and why he so quickly takes Nemo under his wing, Finn. Speaking of wings, these fishy friends have an unlikely pal of the feathered persuasion, Nigel, voiced by Oscar winner Jeffrey Rush, most famously known as Barbossa from the Pirates of the Caribbean series. Nigel is their link to the outside world and plays a crucial role in trying to reunite Nemo with Marlin. Still, there's one more familiar face in the dentist's office, but blink and you might miss him. As Nemo tries to take in his new surroundings for the first time, he gets a look at the dentist's waiting room and he sees a little toy chest overstuffed with toys. Does anyone on the ground look familiar? It's a Buzz Lightyear action figure. Obviously not the Buzz Lightyear, no, he's still safe and sound back in Andy's room. The dentist's office proves to be a great place for spotting Easter eggs. In fact, just before Nemo sees the toy chest, he looks over to the receptionist window. Quick, pause right there. Take a look at the dentist certificates on the wall. Did you know that Pixar actually has a school of dentistry? Don't worry, they don't. But according to the big certificate next to the window, that's where our dentist got his degree, Pixar University's School of Dentistry. Later in the film, a poor kid waits in horror as he watches what he thinks is some other poor kid's painful and violent dental checkup. But take a look at what he's reading. Does it look familiar? It's a Mr. Incredible comic book. Of course, Mr. Incredible wouldn't come out for another year, making this another one of Pixar's plug Easter eggs. Oh, we're not done with the dentist's office yet. There are a couple other details worth mentioning about the dentist himself. First, Peach has got his schedule all figured out. At one point, she watches the door and announces 9 o'clock and cue dentist. When he enters, he says, "Hello, Barbara, sorry I'm late." So obviously the dentist comes in at 9 on the regs, which means whatever time he's supposed to be in, he's always late. Also, when we first see the dentist outside of his scuba gear, he's doing a root canal. At one point, he takes a break from his patient to go see a man about a wallaby, which must be the Aussie version of seeing a man about a horse, dog, duck, or whatever other animal you like for this figure of speech. The point is, it means he's going to the bathroom. The real point is, when he returns, we see him finish the zip and haphazardly brush his hands together. He did not wash his hands. I'm just saying. These are interesting character choices, but if your current dentist has this guy's knack for hygiene and timeliness, I'd find myself another dentist. One more fun fact, he takes care of a patient he calls Davy Reynolds. This is a reference to David Reynolds, who just so happens to be one of Finding Nemo's screenwriters. Every screenwriter needs a good ticking clock, a mechanism that heightens the urgency and therefore the drama of the situation. And that clock is the dentist's niece, Darla. Darla is an unwitting antagonist in the movie. Her uncle plans to gift Nemo to her at her next visit. The problem is she doesn't know how to take care of a pet and wound up killing her first pet fish, Chuckles. Yeah, Nemo needs to get out of there before she shows up. By the way, the name Darla is also not an accident. Darla K. Anderson is the name of a Pixar producer who would play pranks on director Andrew Stanton. Naming the little terror in Finding Nemo after her is his sweet revenge. Poor Darla's name might live on in infamy, but one name in the film will live on in honor for generations. After you read the end, the scene quickly fades to black for a dedication screen for Glenn McQueen, 1960 to 2002. Glenn McQueen was an animator on every Pixar movie from Toy Story on through to Monsters, Inc. It's an incredible honor to have a film dedicated in your memory. But how about a trademark character? That's right, Lightning McQueen is named after Glenn, thanks to his colleagues who would go on to create Pixar's Cars. Cars, that's right! There's one more Pixar trademark Easter egg. Keep your finger on that pause button, this one zooms by fast, literally. After Nemo's initiation, Gil presents his latest plan for getting the whole tank of sea life out into the bay. Part of the plan requires the team to roll out of the window, each in their own individual baggies. As we witness his vision of how the plan plays out, when the baggie is in the bushes, a yellow streak zooms past on the road ahead. Pause right now. That streak is none other than the Pizza Planet delivery truck from Toy Story. Man, that chain is everywhere. I hope you liked this video and found some cool new details you haven't seen before in Pixar's Finding Nemo. Make sure you just keep swimming. And don't forget to subscribe to Movie Logic for more daily movie facts, trivia, and Easter eggs.